Hello and welcome, everyone. It is time to enter the Kumite. I'm joined today by our technical engineer, the 9 Pro Ninja himself, Sean Myers. Today we'll be bringing Omar Kane into the arena. But first, if you enjoy the content we're creating, guys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Okay, Omar Kane. And I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I see some commentators say the name and some of them say it differently. So I apologize if I didn't use the correct ones. But Omar Kane, this is a big moment in MMA history, right here. This is um, the mixture of a new martial arts. You know, uh, most of the martial arts that are used in MMA today were the ones that were tried and tested over generations, over decades, centuries. Um, and, Senegalese wrestling is just one of those that I guess on at least on the world scale, or maybe even just what's recorded that we have, hasn't had a chance to prove itself against, all the other martial arts of the world to see, how this does, It's human nature to learn how to defend yourself, and these people from all over the world, took the time to learn and practice and try things and write things down and test them against each other and then test them against, other martial arts of the world. Um, so it's just, good to see that everybody gets to throw their martial arts in and see what we learn, because you can learn so many different types of techniques that you can implement later from, other sources that haven't really been exposed to us yet. Um, yeah, but we shall see. But what is Senegalese wrestling? Senegalese wrestling, otherwise known as Lam, I also hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is a combat sport that incorporates boxing and wrestling on like a sandy arena. Uh, the significance of this martial arts style is that it wasn't purely rooted in stand up or grappling. Many historical and ancient martial arts would really focus on one. So this may be a really good foundation for young fighters in the future. A lot of young fighters start off in a specific martial arts, and then they start branching out from there. But they have their foundation, their foundational martial arts, and this is it's a cultural thing. Um, and yeah, it's treated in a lot of ways, as like a way of life and a spiritual practice, rather than just purely a sport. There are a lot of rituals and mantras involved throughout the events. And Rugrug is one of the superstars in the sport, being somewhat of a household name. This is like their version of American football. People of all age groups gather around for miles to witness the martial arts displayed and the young fighters tested. Like, this is a national sport, and will sell out 20,000 seat stadiums. It just goes to show, man, sports bring people together. um, so Omar Kane, he was brought up as one of 6 siblings. Small town on the outskirts of the capital city of Dakar. Unlike many of the locals, I don't want to say many. I'm sure there's all kinds of, varieties and classes of people. But, him not growing up particularly wealthy, a lot of those locals risk a lot to migrate, in search of other opportunities. Rugrug decided to train in Senegalese wrestling. This is similar to a young kid wanting to be an NFL player when they grow up, and banking on his chances to get into the league. These fighters, they can make a lot of money for their families, and, to set up a future. Rugrug returned to the capital when he was 20, and he built a perfect record against some of his country's top competitors at 16-0. So yeah, he was doing good, and he got the opportunity to go to MMA. He said he made no hesitation making the switch, taking this opportunity. It's a historical moment. Excuse me. But he said, I have a couple more quotes here. it's a great honor. I want to become the most famous African champion ever. Uh, I believe one can make me into, he's talking about one FC here, can make me into a global superstar. I have many offers to sign from many organizations, but one seems to be a hub of activity. From my first fight, I gained over 20,000 followers on Instagram alone. I think when I become champion, it will be a global event. I really like this. Uh, but yeah, let's bring him to the arena. Why do we have him here? Let's put him under the microscope. What are we looking at? What does he have to offer? Um, and where is he at in the food chain of mixed martial arts as a whole right now? And he's 3-1 in his professional mixed martial arts career. Um, his last fight was a bit controversial. We'll get into that later in the episode. But yeah, he's shown he's got power. He's big. He's powerful. He's built like a tank. He's got tree trunk legs, a barrel chest. This man is a freak athlete. But he's a bit shorter. So what he gives up in reach and height, he gains in power and just mass and density. He might even be a little bit too bulky. A lot of times when someone's that muscular, it takes too much energy to fuel the muscles and can leave someone exhausted very quickly. I'd possibly like to see him train with, maybe lower weight and focus on cardio and flexibility. Maybe lose a little bit of his muscle mass, but we'll see. His cardio hasn't been exposed, with air quotes, as the kids say, or anything like that. In his last fight against Kirill Grushenko, he looked like he might be running out of gas in the second round there, but he could have just been saving some energy for the last round, or he might have accidentally used up more energy than he was supposed to. I will say that he typically gets his opponents out of there rather quickly. Okay, so going into the grappling, I think he needs to really start prioritizing getting and using his underhooks. In some of his fights, you can see him having to work harder just because his opponents are using their underhooks as much as possible, and he's getting kind of caught up in his old ways, if he's being tested in the grappling, that is, and reaching for their shorts, and while they have the underhook advantage, and just trying to muscle his way through positions. So going further into that, yes, people were pointing out that he kept grabbing the shorts of Grushenko and using that to gain some leverage, which is illegal in MMA. Now, at first glance, this may seem like he's just trying to use anything he can get as an edge, and may not be being sportsmanlike. But yeah, remember that he comes from the sport of Senegalese wrestling, where grabbing of the shorts is not only allowed, but it is one of the primary ways to manipulate your opponent. These guys will get in close on each other, grab those shorts, and start throwing motherfuckers around. So these things have been drilled into him since he was just a boy training for the big shows in West Africa. It takes time to build these new habits, and he really doesn't do that. He didn't do that too much against opponents that, honestly, quite frankly, he's kind of walking through. But Grushenko posed some real problems. Grushenko's legit, y'all. I didn't find out if Rugru was a hype train or not. No, I found out that Grushenko can fight. But yeah, Rugru's still early in his MMA career. It's a good lesson learned. But again, we'll get into that later. I always say that wrestling is likely the single most important discipline to have as a foundation when it comes to mixed martial arts as a whole. If you were a stronger wrestler than your opponent, then you have more of a chance to take the fight where you want it. You want to keep it on the feet? Fine. They can't take you down. You're getting pieced up on the feet and you want to take it to the ground? Good. They can't stop you from taking them down. And he's going to be stronger than a lot of his position, physically stronger. So that's a tool that he can use. In his fight with Sofiane Bukashu, you see him get caught to Kimura, and he literally just slams him, man, not once but twice. One being on like his head and shoulder. He's very good and he's accurate with his suplexes to drop to slam these guys, like try to slam them on like their head, like, and he gets the shoulder a lot, which is really good. He can easily dislocate that shoulder. But he breaks the grip and he starts raining down some of that power. Oh my gosh, his power. There are times. So let's get into the striking a little bit. There are times when I believe he gets carried away and forgets to throw things like knees, elbows, or even kicks. You got to remember, he comes from a sport that only allows wrestling and punches. That was it. This is what was ingrained in him since he was a child, and it's the foundation of his style. You know, he's building from this. Actually, a channel called The African Fighters also pointed out that at certain times, it appears that Rugu might not remember to throw them until someone clocks him beside the head with an elbow. Then it clicks. Like, oh, I can throw those. Like, right. Oh, I can hit you with anything. Yeah, I didn't notice that right as it was going, and then it made so much sense after watching one of their videos where they discuss it. His striking game doesn't have some work that needs to be done. As of right now, I believe his wrestling is a stronger aspect of his game. Even though he's got crazy power and man can knock anybody out. But he tends to get a bit reckless when he decides to just march forward. He'll swing wide and he won't bring his guard back up. Sometimes it seems like he's rushing a bit to get his opponent out of there. Against a solid counter striker, he's going to have some trouble if he can't take them down. Then they'll become a big issue. And someone that has linear movement and they don't allow him to get their back to the cage, and they really good at keeping that distance on him. Because like I said, he's a little bit shorter for the division, so he has to find ways to make that up. But if he works on utilizing his takedown feints to their fullest, like if he can develop a really good takedown feint, like maybe looks like he's going for an ankle pick, or there's so many different things he can do, but just be able to mix it in to throw the overhand. I'm going to make you think about this takedown, but I want you to believe that I'm going for that takedown so you don't think about this overhand that's coming. Or uppercut. He's really good at timing those uppercuts when their opponent, is afraid of the overhand. They know he's rushing forward, and they just kind of, just by reaction, dip their head. They just kind of duck a little bit and put their guard up and maybe look down. Yeah, he's really good at catching those. He's got some clean uppercuts. He's definitely landed some really clean uppercuts. He has crazy powerful leg kicks like a mule. You can see him literally take grown men off their feet with a single leg kick. You can hear it even with the audience. He's got some power in those tree trunk legs of his, man. There are times, I was talking about him marching forward and kind of doing it recklessly, but he is being very responsible with one thing. When he is marching forward, he always keeps his head off the center line. I mean, not always, but he has his moments where every single step of the way, his head is off the center line. In every different position, whether he's dipping, whether he's slipping, whether he's, stepping to the outside, like he was really good at keeping his head right off that center line and then making those little slips, which is good to see because with his height, like, given that he's a bit short for the division, the more ways he can find himself inside the pocket, the better. He's in no way small, but he is shorter and does have less reach. So what is Rugrug doing? Where is he going from here? Well, as of right now, an opponent or a date is not available. I honestly thought that he retired because when I looked on the Sherdog website, it noted under the method of the finish that it was retirement in parentheses. Kind of freaked out a little bit. I thought all the effort I just put into making this analysis was for naught. But do not write this man off. This is a man with a lot to prove and all of the gifts to do it. If he remains a student of the game and makes some proper adjustments, you could see a future champion. Kirill Grishenko was a high-level fighter. I could see Grishenko doing quite well in the UFC top 15. Rugrug definitely faced some adversity in their bout, but he was still in that fight, and he put some good work in. He was mostly just losing the war of the underhooks, in my opinion, concerning the clinch, of course. And, you know, that's just the first little insight onto some of what is going to change is from the transition of the different martial arts, from the Senegalese wrestling to the mixed martial arts, and the rule sets thereof. So, yeah, it was enlightening for us to see that, and I know Rugrug's taken that information, and he knows some of the adjustments he has to make now, because he felt it. Because before he could get away with it, because he's just so powerful. But Grishenko was, you know, I feel like Rugrug was the unstoppable force, and Grishenko was like that immovable object. I say that, but Grishenko did have his back against the cage, you know, when they were clinching for the most part. But man, he was good in the clinch. He was dangerous at all times. The fight was ultimately stopped due to a punch to the throat right at or possibly after the bell. It was a bit controversial, but at the end of the day, you have to defend yourself at all times. The ref tells you that at the beginning. Yeah, they're there to stop the fight, but until they stop it and they're in the way, and you know the other person is walking away, you got to be defending yourself. Some people are asking themselves if Rugrug was looking for a way out in that fight. I can't say for sure, but I could see Grishenko starting to slow down too. I think Rugrug just took a good shot to the jugular, and I'm sure that really sucked. It's different when you're not flexing your chest, your neck, your chin, and like bracing for a punch. I'd imagine it hurts much worse. But yeah, I think Grishenko is going to be slowing down a little bit too, and you know, Rugrug, you know, could have possibly arguably won the round. It depends on how much they give like clinch control, because he was kind of holding him against the cage there for a little bit. But I think he was wanting to save his energy for the third round, possibly get ahead on points just by holding him there. And you know, I don't think he was necessarily counting himself out of that fight. There are all kinds of other components that I could go into from here, but I'd like to keep the videos somewhat relatively short and sweet. You know, this is a big moment. This is a historical moment. And I'm really happy to share this, and I hope it, you know, these kind of messages get out and people pay attention. ONE FC is, you know, making some big moves. They definitely have some, you know, like interesting conceptual bouts to put on. So yeah, it's really good to see. It's a different pace. But I'd like to thank you guys, the audience, for entering the Kumite with us here today, entering the arena, and learning about Oumar Kane, Senegalese wrestler, man. This kid has got a lot of potential. I'm excited to see his future. But remember to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, guys, this is not a sport. You don't play fight.